times he might be a little bit late. And who else haven't we heard from? I think that's it. Because Alder Bennett, Alder Martinez Rutherford, Alder Harrington McKinney said they couldn't attend tonight, so. Oh, here's Pepe, so we're good.
Okay.
Excellent. Okay, let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have a quorum. So I'll call the Transportation Commission meeting for October 30th, 2024 to order. Ariana, if you'd read the instructions, please.
Welcome to our virtual meeting. We are going to cover a few basic items before beginning. If you lose connection at any point during the meeting, you can reconnect by clicking the link or calling the number in your original email. To members and city staff, members, if you are able, please activate your video and keep it on for the duration of the meeting. Staff, if you are able, please activate your video when you are speaking. Use the raise hand feature when you'd like to be recognized to speak or ask questions. Staff, click raise hand when you are asked a question. The chair will do their best to call on committee members in the order in which hands are raised. Lowering your hand will take you out of the queue. Members of the public who have registered to speak. The name you entered in Zoom must match the name you entered in registration. You will remain muted until called upon. The clerk will tell you when your time is up. After speaking, a member of the body may ask you a question. If you need to share documentation with the commission, please send it to the email listed on today's agenda. Chair, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Ariana. Aiden, if you call a roll, please.
Sure. Juliana Bennett is excused. MGR Govindarajan. Dina Nina Martinez Rutherford is excused. Barbara Harrington McKinney.
She's excused as well.
Oh, okay. Ann Kovich.
Here.
Robbie Weber.
Here.
Denise Just.
Audio net here.
Pepe Barros.
I'm here and just getting home, so I'm gonna turn on my video in a few minutes.
Okay, thanks, Pepe.
Chris McCahill.
Here.
Bill Bremer.
Here.
And Harold Kleems was at the BPW meeting.
Yeah, so he's excused. Okay, so we have a quorum. Everybody have a chance to look at the minutes from the last meeting. Bill.
I'd like to make a motion approval of the minutes.
Okay, there's a motion. Okay, there's a motion. Thanks. Pepe?
I second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none. Bill, your hand is up. Did you have something else? Okay, seeing none. I'm going to assume a unanimous consent vote unless anybody wishes to vote no or abstain. So please raise your hand. Okay, we will move on. Ariana, could you make me a co-host so I could put hands down, please?
Yes.
Thank you. That's very helpful for me sometimes. So we will move on to item 1. Do we have anybody registered to speak for items not on the agenda?
We do have one person registered, David Kasahara of Seago Road, but I don't see them in the attendee list.
Yeah, I don't either. Huh. And that's for item 1?
Yep. Item 1, neither support nor oppose wishes to speak.
Okay. All right. Huh.
So I can try to keep an eye out for them.
Okay. Okay. Did we have anybody registered for any other items as long as I'm asking?
Nope. That was the only item.
Okay. Thanks. So we can maybe come back to that if he does pop on. Any disclosures or recusals this evening? Okay, seeing no hands. We move on to item 2, B-Cycle Bicycle Transit Systems Update. Helen. Welcome.
Thanks. Good evening.
Nothing going on in your world, huh?
It's been a busy year. I don't think I've been on many calls lately, so I have probably a lot to update everyone on. I have some slides prepared, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And let's see. Okay. Are my slides visible?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right. Yes. So B-Cycle, I'll kind of walk through the major updates, but for those that didn't hear, B-Cycle was acquired by a company called Bicycle Transit Systems. And that acquisition was finalized and announced October 6th, which was just a few weeks back. So we're still working through the beginning stages of an acquisition. If you've ever been through it before, you know there's a lot that goes into this. So I'll share with you what I can today, and I'm sure we'll have more updates for you in the future. But for those that I haven't met, my name's Helen Bradley. I am actually switching roles. So my current role is general manager for Madison B-Cycle, but I'm also transitioning into a new role with Bicycle Transit Systems as director of business development. So I will kind of update you on the next steps of what that means for partnerships in Madison and all of that. But I'll kind of talk through the transition and then just some updates about B-Cycle, Madison B-Cycle, and then if there's any questions at the end, we can go through those. So just to start about who is Bicycle Transit Systems. So they are a company that was established in 2016 in Philadelphia. Allison Cohen is the chair and owner of BTS. She was the former president of Alta Bike, which is one of the first bike share systems in the United States. And she then went on to start her own company, Bicycle Transit Systems. It is a woman-owned business, which I think is awesome. It's very rare to have a woman-owned business in the bike industry. And they're very focused on diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice. Again, headquartered in Philadelphia. And the leadership team, there's going to be names on here you've never heard of before, but the main one I just want to point out is Brian Conger. He was our executive director for B-Cycle. He is now moving into an executive role with BTS as chief business officer. So similar of how our structure was before with Trek. So we are now owned and operated by Bike Transit Systems. We are a subsidiary of BTS. They have purchased all of our software, our hardware, any future product development, as well as all of the B-Cycle bike share systems that are owned. At the moment, there's 10 of us, so that would include Madison. And then also we have 13 independent operators throughout the United States that will also be customers now of BTS. We'll continue to be an in-house, independently run bike share system and operator. What's really cool about moving to the Bike Transit Systems world is that we will be the only docked bike share system in the United States that's vertically integrated, meaning we will now also not only just be owned by Bike Share and running Bike Share, but we're also going to be developing in-house our newest product line and manufacturing it and selling it. So the benefits of, it was sad to break up with Trek, if you will. But the exciting thing about moving to BTS is that we can now be a solely focused bike share business. Whereas when we were with Trek, we were a subsidiary of Trek. They were a bike business first, and bike share often was kind of a secondary thing for them. So we're excited to bring everything in-house. We're going to continue to grow our team, and we're building our product team here locally in Madison. And then just to kind of show you where we are. So we have the 10 B-Cycle owned systems around the US, and then BTS operates two of the largest systems in the United States, one in Philadelphia, and they're called Indigo Bikes, and then a system in LA, which is Metro. And then also in Las Vegas, we have a system, RTC. The Transit Commission owns that system, but we operate it as BTS. So this is just a small glimpse of where we are located, this does not include the 13 other independently owned systems, but they are also scattered throughout the United States. So as I mentioned, I'm moving into a new role, so I will no longer be the general manager for Madison B-Cycle. We are in the process right now. The job is posted, and we're in the process now of reviewing candidates for next steps. I will gradually move into this new business development role, which means I will kind of what we've been able to accomplish here in Madison. I'm looking forward to replicating in other markets and helping them grow their expansion of their systems, their revenue and everything that comes along with that. So I'll still continue to work closely in Madison, and we'll be helping onboard the new GM, and we'll make sure to make the right introductions to those of you on this call. We are moving because we are splitting from Trek. We will have to move out of Trek headquarters. So we have just signed a lease for a new office space here, close to the Isthmus downtown. So we'll be really close to our B-Cycle operation. And then we're also finding a home for our product development team to have a shop space. And that will also be adjacent to our space currently on 3rd Street for those that came out for the shop tour. They'll be in the same building as us. So that'll be really exciting to work side by side. There are any current job openings will no longer be posted on Trek's website. And I just posted the link here in case anybody wants to take a look at what we're currently hiring for. We will be building our team. As I mentioned, the initial need is to build out that product team so that we can start creating our newest bike.
Lightning warning has been issued for your location.
Oh, was there a question or was that?
No, we're good.
Okay. All right. So a quick update on the numbers for our season so far for Madison B-Cycle. I've included a chart here that shows ridership from 2022 up to 2024 year to date. We had an incredible year last year, and we attribute that to a very low entry-level price to our student pass. As you can see, September in 2023 was our highest ridership month to date. I think we had close to 90,000, just over 90,000 trips that month. We are on track to beat 2023's numbers, excuse me. Year to date, we're at 437,000 trips. And combined between the 3 years, we're at just over 1.5 million trips, which is pretty incredible. It took us almost 10 years to get to that number initially. And then now just in the last 3, we've hit it again. So the power of e-bikes. Some of our highest ridership stations, no surprise to those on this call that are familiar with the area. All of these stations are on campus. So Union South has always been our highest ridership station with just over 27,000 checkouts this year. Memorial Union traditionally, and then Lakeshore de Jope. Those are typically our top 3. That there's no surprises there. We have added quite a few stations in and around campus area. So we're happy to see continued ridership there. By the numbers, our membership breakout, I don't have a slide for this, but our membership breakout is about 68% of our riders are annual members. And that's pretty significant. In any other market, you will not see high annual membership rates like that, other than Boulder, which is another university town. So there's a high attrition rate for students and faculty and those that work downtown. And we're continuing to see the ridership to match. And then another way to visualize kind of our trips is where people are riding. And this is a cluster map that just shows you pings where our bikes have been ridden. The ones that are more filled in are obviously more densely ridden areas. What's pretty shocking about this is looking at the path down to Paoli. There's some significant ridership down there, and we don't have a station that way yet, but we have filled in quite a bit in Fitchburg. So it's really great to see that people are really riding all over Dane County with our bikes. And we always appreciate people that let us know when they see an abandoned bike so we can go pick it up. We've we've definitely grown. I'm sure others have heard this before, but over the last 4 years, we've increased our station footprint by over 150%. And we've been able to do that through various channels of funding, working with the city of Madison and the city of Fitchburg and the MPO here in Madison on a TAP grant. And then we've also really tapped into this world of developers. There's a lot of new residential developments happening in and around Madison. And I think they're starting to see the value of sustainable transportation options. So we've been able to partner a lot with developers to increase our footprint as well. And to show you our newest stations, this is not going to include every single station that we've added, but I wanted to at least include the most recent stations. So just as of last week, we have added a station at Olin Park, and I tried to circle them. Our map is, because of the lakes, it's so awkward to put it on one slide, but Olin Park at East Lakeside Street is the newest station. And then just across the path is a new station at Sale and Van Dusen. We've also added one at the Village on Park Street, which is like the very south part of the map that you can see a half circle there. A new station that will be going in this week in Monona is one that we've worked with a developer there. And then we put one near our shop up on East Johnson and Pennsylvania Avenue, one to the west side of town, which is kind of covered here, but the Madison Yards, kind of where the new Whole Foods is. Warner Park, which is off the map up top. And then we also have a new station coming early spring of 2025 in partnership with the Neutral Project. They're developing a new high-rise development right across from Breeze Stevens. So we'll be putting two stations there. That'll be 12 docks total. And we have a lot more coming as well, but these are kind of the latest. And then lastly, I just wanted to share also in Fitchburg, since we now are up to 18 stations in Fitchburg, which is pretty awesome. The newest stations we've put on the ground there are Novation Parkway at Rimrock Road, so right by Finca Coffee, if you're a fan. There's a station over there. Anton Drive at Williamsburg Way, which is on the west side of this map, which is near the Boys and Girls Club for the new Mackenzie Center. And then Traceway Drive, which is where the new Fitchburg hub will be eventually going in, and we'll have a permanent space there. So those are my major updates. The last slide is my new contact information. So if you would like to get a hold of me, we have new email addresses with Bicycle Transit. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions about Madison or just, questions in general about the program or Bicycle Transit. I'd be happy to answer.
Let me just say, Helen, you'll be sending this presentation to
Yes.
Aiden. Yeah, and then Aiden, would you please send it out to everybody? And then they'll have the contact information and all that for Helen. So comments or questions? Thanks for all the interesting and exciting updates. Comments or questions for Helen? Robbie.
Yeah. I actually just got home on a B-cycle, so I do wish there was one a little closer to my house, but we can discuss that. So do you know if BTS is planning on staying with all electric bikes?
That's a good question, Robbie. I don't know the for sure answer, but I'll tell you what I know to this point. They are looking at designing a new acoustic bike. And the reason we're doing that is because we're going after an LA, lightning thundering. We're going after the LA RFP to renew for bike share there. And one of the requests was that there are acoustic bikes still on the ground. And we haven't produced an acoustic bike in over 5 years. So it will be a new product if we go that route.
Okay. And I guess my other question is, do you have any idea whether BTS is going to continue to offer discounts via the UW and some of the other partners that they have? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And all of that will stay in place. Everything that is today will stay as it was for Madison. We don't anticipate making any changes.
Okay. I was just curious because, like how long you can take out the bike and what the partner relationship is and things like that is, sometimes it's different in different cities. And so I just wondered if it was going to remain similar or the same in Madison.
Yeah, you bet.
Okay. Thanks.
Chris, go ahead.
Thanks. So Helen, you mentioned setting up like a new shop in town. I'm curious if that is for Madison B-Cycle or if it will be like I think like it was where the Madison team was sort of the development team for the entire B-Cycle. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So because we have the access that we do to Trek, we will keep all product development team here in Madison locally for now. And we will maintain Madison B-Cycle shop. And then right down the hall, we'll have the new product development team that will develop all the new equipment, bikes and docks for BTS. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, great.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah, good for Madison. Other comments or questions for Helen? Pepe, go ahead.
Hey, Helen. Thanks for the presentation. I feel like it's just very exciting news. Of course, it's a bittersweet in a way, but congratulations on all the work done. And my question has a little bit to do with what Chris was asking. With you moving potentially to that new role, like, how is, like, beyond the new shop, how else is the Madison area or B-Cycle Madison area team structure will change, or who would be, the Madison specific person that we would be working with?
Yeah, great question. We've got a lot of really qualified, wonderful candidates to go through. There was over 50 applicants, which is awesome. So we have to get through that, and then we'll move to the next steps for interviews. And I really hope to have the new GM selected by the end of November before the holidays. At that point, I would kind of stay on, have 1 foot in, 1 foot out, onboarding and introducing them to key stakeholders in the Madison market. And then I will continue to be here as well. I won't be going anywhere. So the structure of the team for Madison B-Cycle will stay the same. The opportunity is that BTS comes with a wealth of knowledge and experience, and what roles maybe we could add to our team that maybe we're lacking. And so growing the team will probably be like the next steps for us.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Pepe. Other comments or questions for Helen? Okay, well, we really appreciate you coming and sharing this information with us. I know it's probably a fairly intense time right now. Going through acquisitions takes a lot of energy and a lot of extra time. So we appreciate you coming, and we look forward to continuing to work with you in your new role.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, and I'll be sure to send the slides.
Okay, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have item 3, the equity addition to the annual operations report. Tom.
Hello. So this equity addition is somewhat of a result or a response to, I think it was a Transportation Commission meeting in May, where there was perhaps a heated exchange between regarding parking fee increases and the like. And I think if I remember correctly, Alder Madison kind of questioned, well, where is the equity portion of the operational report and the like? And I was overseas, so I missed that meeting, so I'm actually, it was good. But you know what? I felt like that comment was a reasonable comment for her to make. And I felt like that the operational report should include an equity component. It has in past years, but last year it didn't. Last year, actually, there was a fair amount of initiatives that targeted equity. And so I thought, why not just document it and append it to the report? So what I've done is I've taken the main graphics from the report and put them in a slideshow. I think Denise, the graphics that I'm going to show right now are the exact same ones that you may have loaded into your reader, so that I'm not showing anything new. And so I'm going to just go ahead and share. Here it is. Okay. I think you all can see a bar chart right now. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So this has been a characteristic of the service that we've had probably since 1998, when the previous transfer point system was initiated. I think more and more workers work downtown, and parking on downtown was expensive, and so our transit service basically grew towards tailoring to those who had traditional, 8 to 5 jobs or 9 to 5 jobs, who needed to get to employment centers downtown. And so this was illustrated by kind of the AM peak, where we had 136 buses. But like at lunchtime, if you needed to get somewhere at lunchtime, we had less than half of what we had during the AM peak. PM peak similar, evenings, and then weekends. If you look at the weekends, it's less than 1/4 of what was available to people who were working traditional jobs. And so while this addressed the transportation need, it wasn't necessarily fully equitable. The transit network redesign was implemented in June of 2023. And one of the goals of the transit network redesign was to smooth out that service. And so I'm going to camp on this bar chart for a little bit, because there's a lot of information and I don't want to kind of skim over it. The gray bars represent the buses in service in the AM peak, the midday, the PM peak, the evening, Saturday and Sunday. Okay. And so that's what it was in 2019. The orange bars represent the buses in service in 2023 after the transit network redesign. So if you look, there were fewer buses in service during the AM peak in 2023 than in 2019. But there's considerably more buses in service during the midday. There are fewer buses in service during the evening rush hour, right? Considerably more buses in service on the evening, Saturdays, and Sundays. And so what this did, it helped smooth out our service so it wasn't so worker-oriented, but it also provide more reliable and more frequent transit to those who have jobs during non-traditional work hours, or they need to attend services during non-traditional work hours. And so this is actually huge. Now, I actually get to work during traditional work hours, absent these evening meetings, right? But me and my wife, we enjoy the evening service. We are using the bus to get to events downtown. But the thing is that someone who's also working downtown, or someone who's working at a Quick Trip on the west side, also has that same bus available to them during this, non-standard work hour. One other factor of the transit network redesign was that there were many, you think of over 20 years, the city grows in different areas, and yet the transit service doesn't necessarily grow or change to represent how the city grows. And so east of the interstate, I'm an east sider, there's quite a bit of housing. There's quite a bit of workforce or affordable housing on the east side. And yet that housing had no transit service on the weekends, like literally none. Okay. That meant that a lot of those people had to walk to the other side of the interstate before they could pick up transit service. So what you see on this map, the orange dots represents, households of color, persons of color, and then the orange rectangles represent kind of the areas where newer service was added on the weekends, and so that helps, show where, how we modified where the transit service was directed to reflect the new boundaries of the city. Now, one thing which has been a criticism, and I think every Transportation Commission member is aware of this, is that with the transit network redesign, we didn't really get to add the amount of service hours. And so since we couldn't add the service hours, we had to rearrange the routing a little bit differently, which means that some riders have to walk a little further. The lines that are in blue, and I've put a couple of blue stars on this map, illustrate where there was service on a weekend, and yet there's no longer service. And so we added major portions of the city, but then also we caused some portions of the city, and some riders had to walk a little bit further. Actually, I'm gonna go back. One more thing that was inequitable regarding the previous system is that Black riders or African American riders had to transfer at a rate 3 times more than white riders. Low income riders had to transfer at an amount about twice as much as white riders. We were hoping that the elimination of the transfer points would reduce that and even it out a little bit. The MPO did an onboard survey in 23 and 24. They have not normalized the data, so there's a large number of responses. Though they have not normalized the data, it seems as though that there still is some inequity in that Black riders still have to transfer more. Perhaps they don't have as many common destinations. But we are hoping that the transfer rate or transfer ratio would be reduced between Black riders or riders of color versus white riders. And so when we learn more about that and more of that data synthesized, we'll let you know. Another, I think, major factor, in fact, this factor actually consumes, 3 to 5 Transportation Commission meetings, is our Safe Streets Madison program, right? And the Safe Streets Madison program was born out of a kind of a combined task force between the TC and the TPPB, which kind of developed a rating system. And the scoring criteria was based on, is it on a high injury network? Is there a pedestrian gap? Is there a bike gap? But one thing that was kind of a multiplier to the whole thing was the EJ impact, meaning how does it impact environmental justice communities? And if there's no impact, then there's 100%. It's just a factor of 1. But if it impacts first or second tier EJ communities, then that score gets multiplied by 15% or 30% to bump it up in the rankings. And so the EJ impact areas are developed by the Greater Madison MPO. The tier 2 are the green, and the tier 1 are the orange. So if you're in if the improvement is in an orange area, it gets 130% multiplied by. If it's in a green area, it gets like 115% multiplier. So based on that, in 2023, the Transportation Commission approved 79 projects. Now, they're not all built, but that's what was approved in 2023. Of those, about 39 of the 79 projects are in the EJ area. So roughly about half of them. And so it has had an impact. There's a considerable number of these projects that are in each areas. You know, some might say, well, should we review the factors? And that would be a different discussion. But I will say that by weighting the projects by those environmental justice scores, it has bumped up more projects in communities of color to the top. And so the addendum basically goes through those two items. I think we'll probably replace the annual report that's online with the newer report. And in the future, we'll just make sure that that equity section continues to be addressed. It forces us to evaluate our measures and our initiatives having an impact on communities of color and low-income people. So that's that. I'm going to stop sharing them.
Thanks, Tom. Comments or questions for Tom? Anybody have any comments or questions? Okay, since we accepted the original report, I think a motion would be appropriate to accept this addition to the annual operations report. Bill? Can't hear you. Yeah, we can't hear you, Bill.
Sorry, I make a motion for approval of the addendum to the original report. I think it's.
Okay. There's a motion.
I'll speak to it when it's.
Okay, we'll get a second and then I'll come back to you. Denise, is that a second?
Now unmuted.
Yep, it is.
Okay. So Bill, would you like to speak to your motion?
I think it was, as I reviewed these this afternoon, I thought it was an excellent job on both of these to take a step back and look at the network redesign and the impact, as well as the Safe Streets Madison. So I think it was a job well done. And I think I look forward to continuing the way you've done it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Discussion. Okay, I'm seeing no hands. I'm going to assume a unanimous consent vote unless anybody wishes to vote no or abstain. Okay, I'm seeing no hands. Thanks very much, Tom. I think that makes an excellent addition to the report and is very, very valuable information. So thanks for doing that and spending the time. Okay, let's move on to the review of the Metro Transit Safety Plan. Justin. I see Mick there as well. Justin, are you gonna start, Mick, or Justin, are you gonna hop in?
Yeah, I'll just start by introducing Justin Mackey, who is our safety coordinator, and he's given that action memo, and he's going to give you some of the highlights of the safety report. That's all I have.
Mick.
To Justin.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. I don't have a fancy PowerPoint presentation this evening, but every year we are tasked with updating our FTA mandated agency safety plan. And this year was the first time in, I believe, 4 years now that the FTA actually made its first major update to the national safety plan. Some of those highlights include increasing frontline transit worker involvement. And what that means is the FTA said you need to get your frontline employees involved in safety, establish a safety committee that is 50% non-represented and 50% represented employees. And we've had that in place now for approximately 2 years. But they also wanted your frontline employees to assist in setting your safety performance targets. Our safety performance targets are the number of fatalities, injuries, safety events, and our system reliability that we look at each year just obviously to see how we're doing from a safety standpoint. But so the FTA said we want your frontline employees to be a part of that process, in which we have obviously established with our update to the plan this year. Expanding de-escalation training has been a really big focus for the FTA as well. They are, and I'll speak about this in a second, focusing heavily on transit worker assaults. And so they're really looking at agencies to expand de-escalation or verbal de-escalation training to not only their motor coach operators, but also their maintenance employees, and mandating that this training is done on an annual basis for all of your staff members. We have a verbal de-escalation program that I put together in 2021, and I'm actually working currently with the Center for Urban Transportation Research and Transportation Department out of Florida to actually expand our de-escalation training and make it just a little bit better in the simplest terms, and really focus on some of our agency's issues. So we're working on expanding that. And then there's also this big portion called the risk reduction portion of the plan that, again, focuses on assaults on transit workers, transit vehicle pedestrians, and infectious disease exposure. What the FTA has done with assaults on transit workers is they've expanded it from looking at solely the physical assaults on our workers to expanding it to really anything that disrupts their day or their ability to do their job. So they've looked at the verbal assaults that our workers have been exposed to, and they're asking agencies to run this hazard through the risk management process within our plan, and then come up with mitigations for the assaults on transit workers. I would say overall, Madison numbers, assaults on our transit workers is very low compared to others of similar size, which is good. And we do have many of the recommended mitigation pieces in place for the assaults. So that's pretty much an overview of updates to the plan and our safety plan in general.
There's a lot of information in here, Justin. I read through it, and hopefully everybody else had an opportunity to do it as well, but it's a very important topic. So comments or questions for Justin? Bill?
Thank you. Justin, how do you think the frontline workers are receiving this involvement with them? Are they pretty receptive to getting involved? Is that a pretty active group that they want to participate and be involved in the safety plan?
Yeah, absolutely. And I can say that just from just meeting with them in general, their overall, the mood, the excitement is very high. And they're glad that they're being heard through these meetings, and then they're able to recommend mitigations for these hazards, which hasn't been done in the past. And they're also part of setting our goals now moving forward. So I do feel that they are excited about this. They love to be part of it. And, we hold you have to be elected onto the committee as part of the process. And we see 20, 30, 40 drivers that want to be part of it. And then, a good number of maintenance employees that want to be on this committee too. So that's kind of how I measure it.
I think that's good that, that there is want to be on it. I think that's versus,
appointed.
The appointed or, oh, by the way, here's another task that you have to do. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah.
Yes, me too. Thank you.
And I'm glad you're involved with the de-escalation training too, of improving it, because I think I received some de-escalation training in 2 other committees that I'm on.
Yeah.
In the last 2 weeks. So I think that's something that we'll all be continuing to have involvement in.
It's been a huge topic, especially from the FTA coming down, and I think it's extremely important. in all aspects, not
Yeah.
just transit, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. Other comments or questions for Justin or Mick? Anybody else have any other comments or questions? Okay, I would like to entertain a motion to accept the report from Justin. So we can be official about it. Bill?
Sure, I will absolutely accept the report. Recommend approval of accepting the report.
Okay, there's a motion. Robbie, is that a second?
That is the second.
Okay, Bill, did you wish to speak to your motion?
I think it's excellent safety plan.
Okay, thanks, Bill. Other comments? Any other discussion? Okay, I'm going to assume a unanimous consent vote unless anybody wishes to vote no or abstain. Oh, welcome, Harold. Okay, motion is carried. Okay, thanks very much, Mick and Justin.
Thank you.
Great job, and I'm really glad to see the employees involved, and I think that's just going to make it better going forward. Next, we have a discussion with regard to both the 2025 transportation capital budget and operating budget. So who's going to start? Tom, are you going to start, or who's going to, or Yang? I see traffic engineering has the first slide.
Actually, I'm starting. I just didn't think we'd get to this agenda item so quickly.
Yeah, I know. We're moving fast tonight.
This is one efficient meeting, right?
We are very efficient tonight.
Right. So let me, I'll share my screen and then we'll go through it.
Okay.
Okay, I'll go through the capital budget first and then the operating budget. We'll start with the traffic engineering. Traffic engineering has many different capital budget items, but most of them are somewhat routine and they do not change substantially from year to year. The ones that I have shown that are grayed out means that there is no change from the capital improvement program from 24 to 25. What I have highlighted or in darker are the capital projects that are that have changed and what were the changes. And so one is the Safe Streets Madison. So normally that's about $1.6 million, and now it's going to be $1.15 million. It's reduced by about $500,000 in order to catch up. I think that the commission is approving projects quicker than we can implement them. And then it also kind of acknowledges that we just got a $6 million federal grant, Safe Streets for All, and that some staff resources will be needed to devote it towards that. The other is the traffic signal installation. So it's kind of a strange thing, but every August there's a kind of a redistribution of federal funds that occurs when states cannot use all of their federal funds that they are allocated. And so from that, we were able to capture, I believe it's from that, we're able to capture a fair amount to replace, I don't know, maybe 150 controllers in our traffic signal cabinets, as well as some of our lighting. And so this traffic signal installation kind of is in there to just reflect the increase funding and work from the carbon reduction funding. For parking, it's very perhaps routine. It's the vehicle replacement for 100,000. Increase to purchase a replacement vehicle. And while they really only have one in the 2025 budget, I don't want to diminish what they have going on, because they have a $50 million parking garage replacement that's occurring right now. It's just improved in previous budgets. Metro Transit, three key items, the electric transit buses and charging equipment, about 13.6 million, no real change. Equipment and facility systems, that ends up being things like hoist, vehicles for supervisors, those types of things. About a little less than $500,000. There's no change in that. And then the transit speed and reliability projects, again, about $500,000, and there's no change in that. For transportation, there's two things. One is there's a $400,000 that can be used available to serve as a local match for federal funds if needed. So the Wisconsin DOT did receive several corridor ID grants from the federal government. And one of those is the Milwaukee to Madison line for Amtrak. However, the state budget is a biannual budget, and they don't always, a local match for that grant is not necessarily reflected in their current budget. And it takes time for it to be reflected in the next budget. And so this is meant to provide a little bit of that local match funding if needed, so that that study can continue to bring passenger rail to Madison. Perhaps one of the bigger things that is in the transportation capital budget is the North-South BRT. Because how do I want to put it? The North-South BRT is likely going to cost close to $200 million if we fully reconstruct Park Street. The reconstruction of a street like Park Street is just expensive. Okay. And since the 2024 submittal and the 2025 submittal, we've found other local monies to do this, and then two are seeking additional federal monies to do this. So things that have changed with the North-South budget is that we would like to transfer about $7 million that was in a contingency fund for the East-West and bring it forward to the North-South as a local match. The other thing is there was some TIF monies for the reconstruction of Park Street in TID 51. And so what we did is we just took those reconstruction monies that were in engineer's budget and put it into the BRT budget, so that the FTA could see that we have local cash devoted towards the North-South BRT. And then what we are doing is we are hoping for another $40 million of federal funding. That could be, it probably would be through avenues within the Wisconsin Department of Transportation. We've asked them for this money. They're evaluating if they can give it. If they can give it, we have secured the local match necessary to accept that, because there's typically an 80-20 match. And so if we receive another $40 million of federal money, we have an intact budget. And then finally, the last thing is that the engineering has a series of Park Street utilities that would be replaced if we reconstruct Park Street. And so that stays in the in the engineering budget because of the engineering expense, but the FTA views that as a local expenditure and it counts towards our local match. What this does is this sets us up to implement a $200 million project if we're able to capture this money. If we don't capture this money, then we will look at different options for Park Street that would still implement a BRT, but might not be able to reconstruct the whole one. So that's kind of the end of the capital budget. Are there any questions before I move on to the operating budget?
Bill, go ahead.
Thanks, Ann. Tom, could you go back to the first slide on the, and it's not a big item. The camera life cycle management. I'm not sure where I read this or saw this, but there was at a point in time, how many cameras of ours are out in the city? And is this nothing to do with equipment, but more manpower? Is that, can you talk about that?
This is a very complicated issue. Is Yang on board? Is Yang listening and he can explain it? If not, I will attempt to explain.
It looks like he's here.
Yeah. You want to explain the camera lifecycle management?
Oh, sure. Yeah, that's a great question. So, Bill, you are correct that at one point, this especially like a couple years ago, we have a lot of camera outages. For traffic engineering, of traffic cameras, we actually have a very small amount of cameras. We only have about 70 or so. And those are, along the major corridors that we use to, monitor traffic situations. But we have helped other agencies to install, quite a few cameras, and many cameras in right of way are on our poles, on the streetlight poles, on the traffic signal poles, and most of those belong to the police department. And especially for those, there are hundreds of those. And at one point, there's lots of outages. There's some track cameras out as well, but most of those are police cameras. We do use those cameras as well, but definitely we're not a primary user. And we have the expertise in our staff to help to fix those things, install those things. So we have been helping to do that. But definitely because it's kind of life cycle thing, lots of cameras are installed at the same time. So they reach the end of life around the same time. So there are lots of cameras out. And also, during the pandemic, we also have struggling with staff shortage issues. So we will not be able to provide the attention level that we used to be able to help MPD fix those. And also, there is not a funding mechanism from MPD to replace those cameras because it's kind of those cameras installed at the same time. It's kind of a new thing. All of a sudden, they reach the end of their life. But when critical needs come up, they reach out to us, and even though it's not our cameras, we did go out to help. And all the time have to use traffic insurance budget to fix those cameras, and causing issues for us as well to move money around to fix those cameras. Okay. So as a result, we worked on the capital program, lifecycle management program with MPD with IT. So there are two parts. So one part is for IT. That's a bigger part that will be used to manage the life cycle of the police cameras, basically all other cameras other agencies own. And there's a smaller part of money in traffic engineering that helps maintains the traffic cameras that the traffic engineering has. So those, you're right. So those are two parts, two kind of programs. One in IT, one in traffic engineering. Okay. So with the help of the program, I'm happy to report that things have gotten a lot better. And at one point, they're almost almost all the cameras got fixed. At least for traffic cameras. But I think this year there will be increase in outages again because of the maybe another batch of cameras are getting bad, and also we have quite a few construction projects this year that's taking the fiber out, taking the infrastructure out. So those were out as well.
Okay.
But things will get better. So it's as Tom said, it's a complicated story.
Yeah, thanks
sorry
for trying
for
to, we're mixing and matches, apples and oranges and everything else. And what we're looking at, this 55,000 is the traffic engineering cameras, not the police department cameras and so forth. And I understand, our staff is, so it's a complicated, I thanks for explaining that. I got a much better feel for this. So this number is, of all the dollars we're talking about, this is a relatively small one, but an important one. But it's talking about the transportation cameras, not anybody else, not the police department cameras. Thanks. Yeah,
that's correct. Thank you.
Okay. Let's see, Harold, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. I have a question about the North-South BRT. So thanks for kind of breaking this down. I guess I was struck by the headline number of 200 million, which, if I remember correctly, that's more than the East-West BRT total. I think we had a one.
And if you think about it, 200 million with the East-West BRT, 72 million of that was buses.
Right.
And so that means that of the 194, you subtract. It was 120 was infrastructure, whereas this is all infrastructure. I think what happens is now that we've implemented East-West, we think, BRT is old hat, and we think of the North-South as just a kind of a minor add-on, and it's not. It's a project that's at least 50% bigger than the East-West, and so we probably need to just acknowledge that it's still a considerable infrastructure project. It's you think about all of the time and emotion that's been devoted to the John Nolan Drive project. Well, this is every bit as much as that because it's the same length. And then we add Packers and Northport and Fish Hatchery and the like. And so it's a considerable project.
And how much of that 200 million, I know that's difficult to split out, is the Park Street reconstruction?
It's rough. It's roughly about $60 million. However, if we retro, it's kind of a strange thing because you have so many fixed costs like traffic control and the like. If we reduce it to just a retrofit, it's not like we save $60 million. We save between $15 and $20 million. And so basically, if we are not able to secure the $40 million of federal funding, we would pursue kind of a retrofit option that would be roughly around $170 million. And so we would still need to find some monies, but we'd be closer. I think we'd be, our available funding and our project costs would be within $5 million of each other.
And when you say North-South BRT is a bigger project, just based on the total route length?
I think as far as infrastructure, most of us, $72 million of the East-West was spent providing, workers in a factory wages to build buses, right? And so we don't really see that. A bus shows up on our road. Whereas $70 million is spent on a road, you see that because that means that you have to, if you're in a car, you have to go from here to there. And there's gravel, and then, there's a lane taken for construction, and there's traffic station. And so to give you perhaps like University Avenue was about 30 million. Okay. So if you take out the storm sewer, so this is almost seven times larger than University Avenue. Okay. So I'm just trying to provide, let's say 6 times, because there's some escalation, there's inflation that goes in there. So it's a large project.
Right. And even though a lot of the streets that BRT is going to be running on are not going to be reconstructed. I mean, yes, we're going to build stations, we might do signal improvements and all of that.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to wrap my head around, like, why is this even more, even though we already have the buses, even though we have the garage, the maintenance facility. So yeah, I think people will be struck by that number.
Mm-hmm.
But thanks for trying to explain.
Thanks, Harold. Other comments or questions for Tom or anyone else? Okay. Looks like no more questions on capital, Tom.
Okay, so I'll move on to the operating budget. In some ways, I'm going to say that the transportation department is not greatly affected by the operating budget, but then it's in many ways greatly affected. And I'll explain. So if the executive budget passes, these are directly from the October 14th Finance Committee meeting. Okay. So if the October referendum or if the referendum passes next Tuesday, then we would go with the executive budget, which is option 1. And there's really not many cuts, or if any cuts, to the transportation budget. If the referendum does not pass, then we would fall under option 2. So option 2 represents 2 different things. One is that we would use a special charge, an infrastructure special charge that would capture $10 million. The city would use about $6.4 million of fund balance, and then there would be about $5.6 million of budget cuts. Okay. If we, option 1, I think, is self-explanatory. It's not increasing things, but it's not really decreasing things, right? Option 2 does impact things. Okay. I think traffic engineering would lose, 1/2 of a traffic signal engineer. So it's an impact, but it's a modest impact. Metro Transit, though, would lose $1 million. Okay. So that's likely a lot of the equity benefits that we had just discussed. Some of those would be erased. The service, rather than cutting specific routes, which often might have a disproportionate impact on certain areas of the city, they likely would cut hours, which would have a uniform impact on the whole city. So it's not like you can't impact low-income riders. It's just that you can't have a disproportionate impact. But in many instances, if you're cutting night hours, right, you're cutting hours that are used by people that don't have traditional work hours. These are some of the other cuts that would occur. The library, parks, streets, and the like. The remaining $1.3 million of cuts would include, maybe longer waits for building inspections, fewer virtual public meetings, longer lines to vote, fewer State Street events. I think one thing that we would notice in transportation is there'd be a little bit longer wait for bike path snow removal, and there'd be no arts or neighborhood grants. I think a lot of I live close to an ice rink, so I like the ice rink, and the ice rinks are actually something that would be cut as well. The distribution of the cuts in the alternate plan are not equal. I think that the way the state has arranged things in our levy limits is that we can't cut certain things in public safety and health, or else we lose some of the shared revenue that we get. Consequently, many of the agencies that are not public safety and health have to bear the brunt of the cuts. Transportation, public works, and planning and development are included in that. So the alternate plan, I mentioned the infrastructure special charge, which would capture $10 million. It would recover the costs of expenditures related to infrastructure maintenance, which largely consists of most of traffic engineering's budget and a portion of streets budget. Basically, there's kind of their street maintenance budget. It would be a special charge in the municipal bill. Okay, and so the way, we've done quite a bit of study on it, and we've actually have been collecting data on this so that we are ready if option 2 has to occur. Generally, the charge for a dwelling unit would be between $37 or $76 per year, according to the current plan. Basically, it's known that higher density residential produces fewer trips than lower density residential. And so the cost per dwelling unit is kind of graduated between the type of housing unit, so that high density apartments have less charge and single family homes have a greater charge. And then for commercial, industrial, and institutional properties, it would essentially be a charge based on the number of parking stalls they have. Because, the parking stall is a surrogate for the travel demand that they are creating. And this is a special charge basically to enable our traffic engineering to meet that travel demand. The one thing about the special charge, particularly on the commercial, institutional, and industrial side, is that we are able to capture that charge from properties that traditionally wouldn't pay property taxes. So for instance, University of Wisconsin, Dane County, and the like. Currently, we have it kind of graduated to $12 to $15 per year, which amounts to a modest amount per month. The one exception that we're currently investigating is essentially event centers. A good example of an event center might be a church or a synagogue or a mosque, right, which has maybe 100 parking spaces for Sunday, but then they're not used during the rest of the week, and so they actually have a kind of a prorated charge based on the days per week that they would be used. This is more to, I think, not overly impact some of the small churches that are doing good work in our community through different types of services. That's the current concept. This would have to be formalized. There's a few memos on this, and we're kind of waiting in the wings, getting ready to implement it, but hoping that we don't have to implement it. And then let me see if there's anything else. There's nothing really else on that. I think many of you are aware of this. If you haven't watched the Finance Committee meeting for October 14th, it's worth watching. It's worth getting an update on how this will affect our city. So, any questions?
Comments or questions for Tom? Carl.
Yeah, thanks, Tom, for walking us through the special infrastructure charge. Is there any consideration, even if the referendum passes? I mean, the concept seems to be really well thought out and maybe, doing a better job than just property tax for capturing, as you said, different impact that different types of properties have, different parking size spots. So is there some consideration? I mean, I think earlier in budget discussions, there were some other ideas of like, well, if we change some other fees, then that might allow us to provide property tax rates that rise more slowly. So is there any consideration of maybe implementing this anyway down the road?
Yeah, I think the discussions right now, and this was actually due to the budget outlook in July, the mayor and the finance department kind of proposed two visions for a sustainable budget that were basically 5-year plans, right? And the preferred one, the referendum passes, and this special charge that we're talking about actually isn't really considered or implemented until 2027. I think there's an acknowledgement that this will need to be implemented until the levy limit statute is changed. It's just that if it's if the referendum passes, then this is a 2027 or 28 thing, unless things change, legislatively. However, if it does not pass, then this is probably a today thing. And so the types that, to help you understand it, if we assume that $100,000 represents a job, this represents 100 jobs, basically, that wouldn't be providing services, to Madison residents. And so and I think, let's say if it's $76. I should have this, $76 divided by 12. It's roughly about a $6 charge on a monthly utility bill, which is something. All right. But it also allows us to have, bike paths, all these things, right? So
thank you.
Thanks, Harold. Other comments or questions? Okay, I'm seeing no hands. We'll wait and see what happens next Tuesday. Thanks, Tom. Thanks, everybody. Okay, next we have crossover reports from PC members who are members of other transportation related BCCs. Any comments? Robbie.
Yes, regarding again the Lakeshore Path on campus, the Joint Campus Area Committee had a presentation from the consultants who are doing the study, and they are going to, well, first of all, they're going to have another meeting, and I don't have the date at my fingertips, but sometime this fall, they'll have another meeting for the public. But the consultants are going to make a recommendation of one of two new surfaces for the unpaved portion, which is roughly from, now I've forgotten, Willow Creek. No. Anyway, it's from the Limnology to at some point to the west, which I can't remember exactly where the unpaved portion ends. Anyway, they are going to suggest either a aggregate that kind of looks like dirt, but it is actually a hard surface, or a boardwalk. And that is to eliminate erosion and improve maintenance and things like that. So that will be presented at the public meeting. They are also going to present, I believe, a low-level lighting suggestion for the unlit portion of the path as well. So stay tuned. I will let everyone know when that next public meeting is.
Thanks, Robbie. Yang, did you have a comment?
Yeah, just want to add that to the boathouse, the other end of the unpaved portion. Yeah, I want to thank Robbie for for advocating for this. I just want to say that as a city Madison staff, we have been getting a lot of complaints from the public, as they don't know that it's under jurisdiction of UW, so it's obviously a city of Madison. So I've been getting quite a few complaints about the impassable condition, especially during the winter. For bikes, wheelchairs, maybe even sometimes pedestrians during winter. With the ice, a lot of icy issues, and so great to see this happening. Also, a lot of erosion issues that we heard. So, thank you.
Okay.
And just one additional comment, Chris Pedakowski was in touch with somebody from UW, and you had suggested, Robbie, that TC get an update with regard to the Lakeshore Path study, and they're agreeable and interested in doing that. They just felt now wasn't the appropriate time, but that they would come here soon to get our feedback. So thanks for that suggestion, and we'll look forward to hearing that. But it would be nice to know about the public meeting. So thanks for letting us know about that. Other updates from anybody on other PCCs? No? Okay. All right. General
Okay,
announcement.
And I do have the meeting is going to be next week, November 6th, as if we don't have enough to do. It's the day after Election Day.
Oh, wow.
At Frank Holt Center, which is in Cronsidge Hall at 5:30 p.m. So it's the day after Election Day.
Wow. Okay. Thanks for letting us know. Okay. Anybody have any other updates? Okay. With regard to announcements, we still have 2 openings on TC, and I really didn't have any other announcements. Yang, did you have something?
Yeah, thank you, Anne. Yeah, is it okay that I use the opportunity to maybe share good news?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. The city is actually a couple of good news that I want to thank Transportation Commission for the guidance support on that. One is AAA Foundation for Traffic Safety recently published a report. So they work with the Institute of Transportation Engineers and a couple research universities. So they did some research around the country about the best practices of Vision Zero, of using safe system approach. So Madison was featured as one of the best practice examples in a report, along with I think about 4 other communities. So that says the quality of our Vision Zero work, and we cannot do that without this body. So thank you for the guidance and the support on that. The city, I think the mayor's office will do a press release, and I'll share that with all of you. And the second good news that we just heard that we won another major federal grant. So that's from the Advanced Transportation Technology and Innovation Grant. So we're getting $5 million federal funding, plus the state committed to contribute $1 million if we get the federal grant as part of the non-federal match. So the city only has to put in, the state agrees to put in the 90% of the 20% non-federal match. So which means the city only needs to put in 2% of the total project cost as local match. We use the funds to build what we call a Vision Zero technology and innovation corridor. So this one's focused on technology, and we use technology to improve safety. So we are collaborating with the university and the state on the US 151 corridor, which covers East Washington Avenue, John Allen Drive, Park Street. So So some of the things we're looking to do, including for example, a red light running warning system to improve safety. We have lots of that. We have seen a lot of crashes involving red light running, and also we'll be doing providing better emergency response, to crashes, to icy conditions on the road, things like that. Yeah, so I just want to share that good news. And again, thank you, Brody, for all the support.
Yeah, congratulations. Excellent news. Yeah, yay. Yay. All right, thanks, Ying.
And apologies for my messy hair. Caught in the rain on the way back. But I was
that rain. Yeah, I was lucky. I didn't get caught in the rain on my walk before the meeting. So thanks for those updates. That's excellent news. Hey, thanks. Next, we have suggestions for future agenda items for the November 20th meeting. At this point, looks like we're probably going to have some public works transportation projects, review and approval of March Metro Transit service changes, Metro Transit Route B North Side Charger installation. We're talking about touching base again on e-bike speeds and speed policy, which we've already had at TC once this year and has been at TPPB in the past. But also there's been some discussion about restricting e-bikes and possibly e-scooters from sidewalks in Madison. So that's something that was brought forward as a topic that we may be interested in discussing. And depending on where we are, the quarterly traffic safety report, and that was going to be here tonight, but Lieutenant Hanna had too many VIPs in Madison. So lots of traffic control. Lots of traffic control was required. So she asked if we could push it off till after the election. And we may, depending on how work progresses and people's availability, have annual work plan, some equity stuff, and we'll see how that goes. So I've been updating the future agenda items from you, and we added the Lakeshore Path study update. We added education outreach regarding right on red compliance and safety reasons for no right on red at certain intersections. Anything else from you that you would like to see on a future agenda topic? Bill?
Thanks, Ann. We've had the PROAG item on the future agenda, and I'd like to maybe I don't know why we're continuing to put that off. I'd like to, I think, maybe add or make a sub note to that. Particular interest is to how PROAG is affecting our sidewalk replacement program, because I think we could do a better job. I've again looked at the projects this year, the projects for sidewalk replacement, and I just think we can do a better job with PROAG for our own work.
Okay. Yeah, well, I'll talk about that at one of our agenda meetings. We had also talked about the city's ADA compliance plan or transition plan, and my understanding from talking with Tom and others is that it's being worked on and will come to TC likely as a referral from the Common Council. So I was kind of thinking we would wait to talk about PROAG to that, but we could certainly have that as a separate topic.
Specifically to what our sidewalk replacement program.
Yeah. Tom, did you have a comment about that?
Yeah. One, the ADA transition plan will be coming to the TC as a referral from the council, largely to you, Bill. You brought this up.
Well, I think
it was maybe 16 months ago.
Denise, I think Denise also was interested.
Okay, yeah.
She did. Yep.
So as far as the new PROAG, there was kind of the new proposal, right? And then the DOT actually submitted their notice of proposed rule. I think it was in August, right?
Correct.
And so they haven't finalized the PROAG, and I think that will occur more like January-ish.
Yep. And I think we should be taking a lead on this. I really do, as far as the city, and we don't necessarily need to wait what they're going to, once they approval of, it's the DOT and then that I've talked with other people now, and they're not going to change the MUTCD until the Justice Department. Justice Department is the one that has the heavy hand, if you will, if people are not in compliance with the ADA, that they have the power to sanction. And I don't think that anybody wants to do that. I think it's in our best interest to run our program the best we can, using the PROAG is out. These are guidelines. Yes, they are guidelines, but I think they're good guidelines, and we should be looking at these for our pedestrians that are at most at risk.
Sure. And, we really can't talk about stuff tonight because it's not published on the agenda, but
Right.
I think there is a lot of good work being done with regard to PROAG guidance. But I'll talk with folks at our agenda meeting, because there has been a lot of interest in PROAG and a lot of conversation at TC. So maybe we can take that as a separate item, Bill. And then, the ADA transition plan will come to us through the council, and then we'll look at it on an annual basis. Thanks for that. Yeah, Denise.
Audio now and mute.
Yeah, I'm going to avoid talking about those two things tonight because I know we can't talk about them, but I want to support Bill's thinking on separating them out so they don't get conflated. I think that's really, really critical. So PROAG in relation to the sidewalks, and then the ADA transition plan as separate items.
Okay. Yeah, and we have the ADA transition plan added into the work plan that'll come back to you, and we can and we have PROAG as a separate agenda item on our list. So I don't see any reason why we can't bring that forward sooner than the ADA transition plan. So we'll work on that. So thanks, Bill and Denise. I know you're both been working on that very hard, and we appreciate that. And I've learned a lot about both those, about PROAG for sure. Harold, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. This prompted some thinking in my head. One thing that I don't know if that should be on the TC agenda in the near future, or this is maybe something that I would want to talk to somebody I don't know, maybe somebody can tell, maybe Tom or Yang can tell me. But the issue of pedestrian detours during construction projects, where we have all these obstructions, and sometimes accommodations are being made, sometimes they are not being made, sometimes they're made half-heartedly, and there doesn't seem to be, or it's unclear to me, who decides this? What is there a policy? If there's a policy, then why does it not work the way it maybe should? So I think that's a good topic for us to talk about at some point.
Yeah, and let me, and again, we can talk about this offline at an agenda meeting, but Denise and Bill, and I don't want to go too far into talking about that, but pedestrian access during construction projects, that's part of PROAG too, isn't it? Yeah, so maybe we could combine that in with a PROAG discussion, because my understanding was that was one of the concerns under PROAG, was to make sure that pedestrians have appropriate access during construction projects if they're detours. Denise and Bill, can you tell me, is that right?
Well, I don't want, because I don't want to get into the discussion.
Right, but can they be combined as?
I don't think it should be. No.
Would it be correctly combined under a future agenda topic is my question. How's that?
I think it'd be best to handle it separately. It's two topics too.
Okay, so pedestrian detours during construction projects. Is that the right way to say it, Harold?
Yeah, I think that captures it. And again, I'm happy to connect with somebody offline to maybe do some of the groundwork of what that could look like. But yeah.
Okay. We will add that on. And it may be a companion topic that maybe we could have them both at the same meeting or something. We might have some, synergy there. Great. Other topics. One of my favorite things about TC is how involved everybody is and how interested everybody is in all of the transportation projects, which I can tell by how often we have great suggestions for future topics. So much appreciated. Any other topics? Okay, I'll make sure that gets updated and added to our list, and we'll talk about that at maybe our next agenda meeting would be appropriate. So any other future agenda topics? Okay, then we need a motion to adjourn. Bill.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, and Robbie.
Second.
All right, a motion and a second to adjourn, and we never have discussion about that, and nobody ever objects. So thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. Have a great day.